What's up, everybody? Back on the podcast. My name is Ryan Thomas. You're tuning in to my podcast, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, and I'm back again live on the T-Take, as I like to call it, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. And there's a lot of news to talk about in the world of sports, in particular in the world of mixed martial arts. UFC on Fox wrapped up this past weekend on Saturday night. Jeremy Stephens main eventing, going up against Josh Emmett, who is a surging featherweight. Emmett went into the bout ranked 4th. Stephens went into the bout ranked 7th. So two of the top 7 UFC featherweights, 145-pounders in the company, and Jeremy Stephens coming off a huge win versus Dooho Choi. Josh Emmett coming off a huge win versus Ricardo Lamas, both ending in knockout. So we knew going into this fight that it was going to be it would be back and forth. We knew that one guy was coming forward, the other guy was coming forward. Jeremy Stephens throws everything with bad intentions. Josh Emmett is a pure power puncher. And there were 2 knockdowns in this fight. One, Jeremy Stephens got knocked on his butt first. Josh Emmett knocked on his butt second, which led to the ending of the fight. Before I get into the ending of the fight and, my opinion on it and everything like that, I really want to talk about prior instances in mixed martial arts where I thought, wow, these rules we need to see some change. One of those circumstances, I was actually I saw it live at UFC 210 in Buffalo between Gegard Mousasi and Chris Weidman. Now, that was the co-main event of UFC 210, huge fight. It ultimately ended up being Gegard Mousasi's last fight in the UFC. Chris Weidman's trying to get back in the win column. He knows Gegard Mousasi's a big test for him. Gegard Mousasi's trying to get that one last win to maybe cinch himself a UFC title shot. And the way that fight ended, where Chris Weidman had both hands down and Mousasi lifted up Weidman, kind of in a front headlock position, lifted up Weidman and then threw the knee to where only Weidman's left hand was on the mat and his right hand was coming up off the mat, which, according to the rules, both palms have to be down in order for that to be ruled a downed opponent. Stupid rule. I really think that we as fans, myself as a guy that covers the sport, writes for the sport, and has this podcast, I think we need to be as blatantly honest as possible and say that there's a lot of things that need to change in this sport. A lot of things, between fighter pay, between rules that virtually make no sense, one of those being one of those rules, that situation being one of the rules. Then you fast forward, obviously a little bit later, but somewhere around the same time, maybe a couple months later, Dustin Poirier versus Eddie Alvarez. Dustin Poirier kind of in a sideways position against the cage. Eddie Alvarez with top position. Same thing. Knees a downed opponent, as Dustin Poirier in that instance was actually had his hands on the ground and he was on his knees. So that was a blatant rule, breaking the rules, I should say, a blatant circumstance where he was breaking the rules. Compared Dustin Poirier's or Eddie Alvarez's instance of breaking the rules versus Gegard Mousasi. Gegard Mousasi's, there was a little bit of a gray area because it was like a bang-bang play. Kind of like in baseball, the center fielder throws the ball home. It's a bang-bang play. The catcher catches it, tag, out, or tag, safe, bang-bang. So that's how I saw that Mousasi-Weidman situation. Ultimately, I think that the rules should be that if an opponent is on his knees, he cannot be kneed in the head. If he's on his feet, still standing, but hunched over with his hands on the mat, that shouldn't be the rule, in my personal opinion. I think the rule should only apply to an actual down. That's, to me, saying a downed opponent is not on his hands. To me, a downed opponent is on his knees because he's down. He's not standing. Even when you have your hands on the ground, you're still standing. Your knees aren't on the ground. You're on your feet still. So in this situation with Josh Emmett and Jeremy Stephens, two high-flying, fast, powerful 145-pound fighters in the UFC, we knew that they were going to be coming at it. We knew that they were going to bite down on their mouthpiece and go forward. And when Josh Emmett dropped Jeremy Stephens, it was almost as if we knew that the floodgates were opening a little bit. We knew that maybe Jeremy Stephens would kind of be like, okay, well, he just knocked me down. I got to knock him down now in order to make up this round or in order to possibly finish the fight and get this guy out of here, because Josh Emmett is a tough son of a bitch. There's no doubt about it. He's a tough guy. Very tough guy. So Jeremy Stephens does just that. He bites down on his mouthpiece. He works to knock down Josh Emmett, who I do believe Josh Emmett got a little bit, I don't want to say cocky, but in most ways, yes. Got a little bit cocky in there. Thought that he was going to send down Jeremy Stephens again, and he didn't. Jeremy Stephens sent him down. And in the midst of Jeremy Stephens knocking down anyone, he's going to swarm them. He's going to throw elbows. He's going to throw punches. The elbows appeared to be, to me, more towards the side of his head than the back of his head. And the knee, whether or not it was legal or not, okay, so pardon me there. Josh Emmett gets knocked down. Jeremy Stephens runs to him, swarms him, throws elbows from top position directly at the head of Josh Emmett, the jaw of Josh Emmett, and a couple of them landed kind of on the side of Josh Emmett's head, almost on the back of his head. Could be deemed illegal, could be not deemed legal. I thought they were legal. When Josh Emmett, got on all fours and tried to stand back up, Jeremy Stephens threw a knee to a downed opponent, a then downed opponent. Now, to me, I said this on my Twitter at Thomas Takeover. This is what I said. I don't care if an opponent is down or I don't care if the knee lands or doesn't land. I don't care if the knee lands or doesn't land. That knee was thrown. When an illegal blow is thrown, I've seen it with Herb Dean, I've seen it with Yves Levine, seen it with other refs in the sport of MMA, Big John McCarthy, to name another one. When an illegal knee is thrown, the fight is then paused if that knee is landed, which in this case, the knee, in fact, was landed. So to say, well, the knee didn't land, the knee didn't quite land, yes, it did land. It was thrown, and whether it land flush or not doesn't really matter. That doesn't really matter. The fact is the knee was thrown. Let's really talk about something that was the most disturbing part of this entire situation. Okay, a few things. Most disturbing part of this entire situation is the fact that where was Dan Miragliotta? He wasn't on top of the action, was nowhere to be found until Josh Emmett was unconscious. Where was he? When Josh Emmett was dropped and Jeremy Stephens had to pounce on him, why was Dan Miragliotta not right there following Jeremy Stephens to Josh Emmett? That's something that needs to be taken into consideration. Josh Emmett definitely won the first round. Dan was not in position yet again. Dan's got to get in there. He's got to get in there. The knee definitely landed, whether it was grazing, it landed, it touched his head or shoulder, even if it wasn't flush. The head is not made to eat a knee to the face. Regardless of whether it fully landed, the fight should have been paused when that knee landed. Even whether it landed or not, the ref, his job is to separate when a rule is violated. Dan was on the other side of the cage. The knee hit him practically in the ear area. I dare anybody to let someone knee them in the ear and say, oh, that didn't land. Even the slightest knee that would land on a human being, if thrown with fully bad intentions, would hurt. I don't blame Jeremy Stephens in this. He was in the heat of the moment, in the midst of a fight. It's the ref's job to make sure that didn't happen. Whether the knee landed flush or not, when a fighter throws an illegal blow, the action is usually paused. That's my take on this. He wasn't there. As soon as Stephens dropped Emmett, Dan was on the other side of the cage doing God knows what. Maybe filing his taxes, getting his grocery list together, thinking about what after party he's going to go to after the fights. I don't know. But Michael Bisping and Dominic Cruz, who were both of the post-fight analysts at the desk for Fox, did no service to this situation at all. I thought they were terrible. Dominic Cruz was completely biased in his assessment of it, sticking up for Jeremy Stephens due to the fact that he's a teammate, so much so that Daniel Cormier, who was commentating the fights, had to go through a verbal sparring match in the UFC FS1 post-fight show. Michael Bisping, watching a replay. Let me repeat that. Michael Bisping, watching a replay. I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but the guy's got one eye. He has one. It's well known that he has one eye, and we're asking him to view a replay and assess it. I mean, the monitor would be right in front of his face, but even so, I'm not trying to do a low blow, but that should be taken into consideration. That should be taken into consideration. The fact that we had Bisping with one eye, who has admitted that his one eye is in very bad shape, but still continues the sentiments that he wants to fight again, which I don't think he should. Dominic Cruz, being a true homer that he was on Saturday night, sticking up for Jeremy Stephens, his teammate. I get it, he's your teammate, but the knee did land. If any other ref, Herb Dean, Yves Levine, was in there, that fight would have been paused. And it wasn't. We can't go back and rewrite it. Josh Emmett will definitely try to appeal the loss, as he should, but he won't win it. Let's be honest, he won't win it. They'll say, well, it's the ref's job to stop it, and he didn't stop it. So, hardy har har, best of luck to you in your next fight. Good luck trying to get the Jeremy Stephens rematch, which I think we'll see maybe eventually, but not right away. I'd be shocked if we saw that fight right away. Jeremy Stephens is coming off, several wins. His name is gaining full steam as it should. He's finally getting his due. And I don't fault Jeremy Stephens in any of this. I'm not going to say Jeremy Stephens is a dirty fighter, because he's not. I'm not going to say he was wrong for trying to finish his opponent. It's fighting. It is mixed martial arts. The goal is to finish your opponent before he finishes you. And Jeremy Stephens was probably caught in the heat of the moment. He was caught in the heat of the moment, thought that he was doing the right thing, and he probably, threw that knee and thought, whoops, and, tried to throw the punches after that, which is what happened, actually. After he threw that knee, he's like, oh, I can't throw that knee, my bad, and then just continued to punch Josh Emmett, breaking Josh Emmett's orbital bone. So for anybody saying, well, Josh Emmett should have hung tough, he was winning, you've obviously never been in a fight before. You've obviously never competed in any combat sports realm. It's not easy. So that's my thoughts on Jeremy Stephens versus Josh Emmett. I want to throw out a shout-out to Ilir Latifi. Holy crap. What a win that was. What a sequence that was. Where Ovince St. Preux, much bigger than him, 6'4", 230 at the time of the fight, 6'4", athletic. Ilir Latifi, like 5'10", 225. Huge reach advantage for Ovince St. Preux. And Ilir Latifi knocked him down, he stood back up, OSP stood back up, and Ilir Latifi choked him unconscious. Huge win for Latifi. That was the Thomas Take. You're tuning in. I'll be right back to bring you part 2 of the show.